Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to cloud test lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
Or else you can make use of finally block. The method code, the statement block, whatever that you have written with respect to finally block will get executed irrespective of the exception. The syntax for finally block is finally, open brace, closed brace, and set of statements. These statements will get executed even with the exception or without exception. The finally block, it has to follow after try catch. After writing your try catch, it should follow by your finally block. There shouldn't be any statements between catch and finally. So that means for finally, it won't need any object because it has to be executed even with the exception or without exception. So currently, we haven't covered any database code or files code, streams code. So I'm not going to write any connection closing kind of stuff. I'm just writing one statement, finally block, executing. So with normal cases, let us think about first the success case. Success case is depth value, we are passing it correctly. So that means it won't execute this code. It will directly execute method completed. So the success case is it won't execute this particular block because we are not passing the depth value as less than 0, and it will set the data and it will complete execution this line as well, and it won't enter cache block because we didn't get any exception. Once after that, it will see that do you have any finally blocks. So in success case also, it will go and execute this particular statement, and then it will go and execute the rest of the code. In failure case, in the sense, let us say you have passed the depth value as 0. Sorry. In this case, this will be going to execute this line first. It will be going to throw an exception. When it has raised an exception, you have the matching catch handler, system.out.println. It will execute this line, and again you are trying to throw this exception one more time. So that means when you have specified the matching catch handler, currently you don't have any with respect to your set depth method. So that means it was supposed to transfer the control back to the caller. If it finds a matching catch handler, it will come to that particular place and execute the code. Currently you don't have any, and this will be going to send back to the caller. Before sending, it will verify, do I have finally block. Currently you have finally block. It will execute that particular block, and then only it will transfer the control back to the caller. So that means in exception case as well, this block will be going to execute. The finally block will be going to execute. So with the success case, you can see that finally block executing, method code completed. The method completed, it was available once after the catch block and finally block. When an exception has raised, without an exception, this line will get executed anyway. When an exception has raised, let us say I'm passing it as 0 value now. You can see that finally block executing, it has printed this particular block. And you can see that there is no method completed statement within our console output. Once after executing finally block, once it has reached end of the block statement, it will immediately transfer the control back to the caller handler. The caller handler is our box client handler. Until now, we have specified that a try block, it was supposed to be followed by a catch block. There is one exception case. A try block can also be declared with a finally block. So with respect to try block, it has to follow either catch block or finally block. That means you don't want to handle the catch block, or you don't want to handle the error at this level. Currently, that's what our case is. You can see that I'm not going to handle the exception here. Still, I'm throwing an exception at this level. I know that the client will be going to handle this exception because I have mentioned that my method will be going to throw an exception. So currently, when it has encountered this statement, it will find the catch statement within your method. So that means it will verify in the caller method. The caller method is your box client main method. So before returning the control back to the caller, it will execute the finally. Let us go and execute the code. Before returning the control back to the caller, it will execute the finally block, and it will be going to return the control once after executing the finally block of code. So in normal cases, finally block is used to close the resources or to close the connection or to execute the statements which are supposed to be executed irrespective of the exception. In those cases, we'll go for finally block. In the last class, I have mentioned about the exception class, exception object, our exception object, which is almost the root of all the exception classes, because we are not going to handle any of the error classes anyway. So most of the times we'll use exception class only. So this is a class which means you can just verify the syntax or the method code. You can see that this is not a final class. So if it is not a final class, you can still extend this class and you can just add one more class on your own. When you want to write a custom exception class, normally we will extend exception class and we will write our own method implementation. Let us say we want to provide some detailed information to the client. Let us say whenever there is an exception occurred with respect to database, I want to inform to the client by using database exception. See, the database exception class, it was not available in the hierarchy. So it's not possible for us to use other classes and provide information to the client. It will be awkward. The client won't be able to understand that he's getting a database exception. You can still go ahead and throw new exception of database exception occurred. No issues. You can write like this and the client might understand by looking at the exception message. But let us say if you want to extend the functionality, and you have the option of extending your exception class and write a separate class. Let us say in our case, in our box case, I don't want to write a manual exception, default exception, and I want to write a validation exception class. New validation exception class. What we are supposed to do, we need to extend exception class. Whenever you are writing your own exception, the fundamental is you need to extend exception class. I can make use of superclass tab, and I'm specifying that I want constructors from superclass. So instead of me writing all those stuff, it will be filled by our Eclipse itself. I don't want all the constructors as of now. I just need only one constructor, one useful constructor, which is validation exception of string message. So whatever the message that was received, whatever the message that the client will be going to prepare. So in this case, let us say instead of throwing the normal exception, I want to throw a custom exception, validation exception message. But this validation exception, see, I'm using in box client, which is available in com.client package. But my validation exception is available in com.exceptions package. You just need to import that one. To do that, put a control space. It will show you what kind of a method that you want to call, and you need to specify the correct class. Here you can see that the first one is com.exceptions.validateException. There is one another also, java x.xml.bind.validation exception. This is from some other package, which is not a required one as of now. If you know from which class you are going to import, you can directly go and specify com.exceptions.validation exception, and it will be resolved automatically. If not, put a control space and select that one. The import statement will get added automatically by your Eclipse. Once you have created this one, see here you are specifying string. Anyway you have validation exception constructor which accepts a string value. If you want to perform some other stuff, you can perform at this level. So validation exception occurred. Sorry. By writing a custom exception, currently your client is handling the top level exception. Anyway, whatever the exception that you are creating, validation exception, that is also a checked exception which will reside under the exception class, which means again you can make use of superclass reference to subclass object and it has worked at the same level. But if you remove, let's say you are not handling the top level, then your compiler will be going to specify, we didn't change the throws clause. See, currently it is throwing validation exception, so I'm changing my throws clause also that this method will throw a validation exception. When we take a look at here, you can see that unhandled exception type validation exception. This we already know that when we are trying to call a method which throws some exception, it will enforce you to handle the checked exception. So here you can see that I'm just clicking on control space and the import statement was added automatically by the Eclipse. With respect to validation exception, you should specify super of message. The reason for that is you want to specify the error message with respect to print stack trace. That will be specified by using calling toString method. And when you say super of message, it will call what is the super of message? Super nothing but your superclass constructor with a parameter of type string. So this constructor will call the toString method and set the exception message properly. So don't take that overhead, just call super of message, and if you want to perform some extra information, you can still go ahead and write that one. If you want to override some other stuff, let us say I want to override print stack trace method. I want to override the print stack trace method. Still call print stack trace that was available at superclass level and write some other additional information, whatever that you want to write. Print stack trace at custom exception level. So by using hierarchy, superclass reference to subclass object, the method call, go back to validation, sorry, box client. So here I'm calling e dot print stack trace. When you call print stack trace, the method call will result to the lower level method, and then it will call superclass method which is print stack trace, and the actual stack trace will get printed, and finally you'll be able to see some custom messages as well. Let us go and execute this particular code. Sorry. Now you can see that the print stack trace at custom exception level, and it has displayed the default stack trace also, which we have specified with respect to our print stack trace method. And then you can see that the exception object that got constructed is your custom exception instead of the default exception class, and the client also received the same exception message with the exception message value which you have passed with respect to the constructor, and you will be able to see the stack trace as well. So normally we'll handle the database exception kind of stuff or streaming exception kind of stuff. Database exceptions, they are not at all available directly. You can see that SQL exception was available. But by specifying SQL exception, you can't display all the messages, like let us say there is an issue with respect to the query, or there is an issue with respect to the connection. So it's not possible for us to specify individually and perform some other operation based on our needs. So anyway, our exception class is a normal class, which means you can simply extend that class and provide an implementation for subclass.
Fish?
Yep. Yeah, Vijay. Go ahead.
Can you extend it just one quick, maybe just 1 minute? This example. When you execute
Which one?
Flow, right? Yeah, this flow. Yeah.
Okay. You want me to explain this again?
Yes, Krish. Just for 1 minute.
Yeah, sure. See, instead of handling the top level exception class, currently what we are trying to do is we just want to write a custom exception. We can write a custom exception because our exception class is not a final class. You can simply extend exception class and write your own exception class. That's what we have done here, validation exception. Our validation exception extends exception class, which means you have the access to all the methods from your exception class and access to all the methods from throwable class. Currently, I have provided two constructors. The first one is default one, and the second one is a constructor which accepts a argument, which is string. Until now, we have seen about constructor accepting a string object, a string reference, which can be used to call toString method and provide some exception message to the client. We have seen exception message like depth value shouldn't be less than 0. So currently,
when it's a super message, all the constructor of the parent.
Exactly. That's what this is normal superclass constructor call, right? Super off.
What I have to pass?
You just need to take a look at API for the superclass.
Okay, can you come again?
Currently, you just need to take a look at API for superclass.
Okay.
So currently, you can see that our exception object is accepting a string object. So this string, I have mentioned previously that this string constructor is used to display the exception message. Once you have set this string value by using superoff message, that message will be used while displaying the exception message to the user, and it will use the same value or same string value to display the error message to the client. See, this exception message is critical because based on this only the client will be able to understand the exception issue and he can rectify the error message. He can rectify the error. So just for our understanding, I have overridden the print stack trace method also, but we don't want to change the basic print stack trace which was provided by our superclass. So that's why I'm calling super.printStackTrace method, and once after that I'm writing some other additional statement for my usage. Now with respect to box class, I'm not throwing the basic exception object and I'm throwing the validation exception, which is a custom exception. When you create a validation exception with constructor, the call will result to constructor with argument because I'm passing a constructor with argument from the box class. Once it has entered, it will execute super of message, super class constructor message. Then it will throw validation exception. I don't have any catch block here for validation. It will still execute finally block, and it will transfer the control back to the box client. With respect to your box client, you are handling validation exception, and you are trying to call print stack trace. So print stack trace you have overridden in box client, in validation exception. It will still call superclass method, and it will perform some other operation, whatever that you are expecting. And finally, it will display the basic stack trace, which is the exception stack trace. And whatever the message that you have set with respect to validation exception, it will make use of that, and it will display to the client.
Hey, can you go to the box client?
Yeah.
Here you said catch validation exception. Okay.
Is that fine, Vijay?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me know if there are any other doubts. You guys are supposed to practice all these cases. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, could we take care of this command line problem for me after the class?
After the?
After the class, after everything is done.
Oh, you want to ask some kind of doubts?
Well, yeah, I tried to fix the running of the Java programs from the command from CMD, and still couldn't manage. So I just wanted to get over that a little bit and show you exactly.
Okay, with respect to Java C or Java, you're facing issues.
Both of them. Like, when I type Java C, command line doesn't recognize it.
Okay.
And I tried to change
Java
the environmental variables and all that. Yeah.
Okay. So for Java C, you're still getting it as okay. Once after that, we'll discuss anyway. Let's wait for 2 more minutes, and we'll see some other doubts related to the class, and we'll take a look at that. Okay.
All right.
Krish?
Yeah.
This is Vijay. Where is the call to the constructor for the first one? Here you only call the print stack trace, but the new one is called in the constructor, right? Okay.
Yeah, new means it will create an object and it will call the constructor as well.
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website H2KInfosys.com. On our website H2KInfosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training at h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys at gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.